and welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of strength and conditioning and pushing the limits of athletic performance with your host, Joe Ryan. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, tactics, and innovations that make athletes stronger, coaches smarter, and the sports we love even more thrilling. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or just a fan of the game, we've got something for you. We'll be talking to some of the brightest minds in the industry, sharing their insights and experiences, and uncovering the methods behind the madness of high-performance sports. So tune in, turn up the volume, and let's get ready to learn, grow, and be inspired. This is the Moffitt Method Podcast.
Today, we welcome in Coach Alan Bryant, sports performance, football, powerlifting, and track coach at St. Louis Catholic High School in Lake Charles, Louisiana. He is also the owner of A to B Strength and Conditioning and Fitness, LLC. This is Coach Bryant's first year at St. Louis Catholic as their sports performance coach. He has been in strength and conditioning since 2003. Coach began his career at Sulphur High School in Sulphur, Louisiana as an assistant strength coach, football, wrestling, and track coach. In 2009, Coach Bryant transitioned to the college level at McNeese State University, where he was the director of strength and conditioning for all women's sports and also trained men's basketball and the pitchers on the baseball team. He left McNeese to work in the private sector in January of 2013 at Performance Evolution, where he was the strength and conditioning coach for amateur and professional mixed martial arts fighters. He ran all group fitness classes and personally trained the public as well as a variety of athletes. In 2018, he coached at Sam Houston High School, where he was the campus strength coach, assistant football coach, head powerlifting coach, and head girls track coach. From May of 2022 to May of 2025, he coached at Lake Arthur High School, where he was the campus strength coach, assistant football coach, head powerlifting coach, and head girls track coach. Welcome in, Coach Alan Bryant, to the Moffitt Method Podcast. Coach, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Joe. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, another day, man. Another day in paradise, they say. Another day on earth. I woke up today. Everything's great, man.
It's a great day to be here.
Yeah. How's everything over in the old Chuck?
Not bad, man. You know, we're rolling football season right now, and I think with just south of 500 kids in total in school, I've got about 320 of them that come through the weight room every day. So it's balancing that, and balancing coaching a defensive line, and and then somewhere around November we're going to start powerlifting season. So
yeah, 320 athletes, man. I mean, that rivals some of the 5A schools you've been at.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a good number of athletes.
That's quite a few.
And y'all are new over to St. Louis, right? As far as staff goes.
Yeah. I have a great staff with me, man. It's like I tell them every day. It says sports performance director on my title, but we work together. I'm not your boss. Y'all are grown adults, and they're both great coaches. They're both experienced coaches. One played some semi-professional basketball, and they were both college athletes. And where they don't understand some programming methods that I do, they make up for it in effort. So yeah, we're brand new. It's a brand new class for the kids at St. Louis, and they're taking to it really well.
Yeah, that's half the battle, right? Doing everything intentionally, doing it with intent.
Yeah,
putting forth that effort. If the coaches, us as coaches, can do it every day, then the kids can do it every day. It makes our lives that much easier.
100%.
So look, we told our listeners a little bit about you, but it's always good to hear it from the person, man. Tell us a little bit about your background, your story, how you got to where you're at now.
Man, I started in 2003 at Sulphur High School in Sulphur, Louisiana. I was the assistant director of strength and conditioning and football coach. I coached wrestling, coached track. I was there till 2009, and I went to McNeese State right here in Lake Charles. I was the director of female sports performance in McNeese, and ended up having 2 male sports, and I was put in charge of the pitchers on the baseball team. And I guess the better job I did, the more sports they gave me, the more responsibility I got. I was there for roughly 4 years. I left to go in the private sector where I worked with professional mixed martial arts fighters, and I ran group fitness classes and personal trained at a great gym in Lake Charles. It's called Performance Evolution. I was there for, oh man, it's been so long now, about 5 or 6 years, and then I just had the itch to get back into coaching in at the high school level. And I always had the intent to go back into college. But once you get out, you got to buy your time unless there's one immediately available. So I was at Sam Houston High School, where I coached football and ran the weight room and coached track and started the powerlifting team over there. We did a lot of great things, in a short amount of time. I was there for about 5 years and went to Lake Arthur High School for three. Um, Football, track, started powerlifting, worked with everybody, everybody that wanted to work in the weight room with me. Football was the main one. Of course, we ended up having basketball and baseball and, all the other winter sports because a lot of our kids played both ways, I mean, it played both ways in almost every sport, especially football, and did every sport on campus. And then, I got a call, I guess, about May, and they said, "Look, man, we're gonna about a year ago, said we're gonna make this sports performance class. Are you interested?" And it wasn't time to leave Lake Arthur yet. And then you know how it is, Joe. Life starts happening, and driving 50 minutes each way and getting home about 9 o'clock every night started eating at me, and I didn't really, see my kids a bunch. So it was the easiest tough decision I've ever had to make.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
it's always
toughest,
hard.
easiest decision you can make.
Look,
'Cause what's that?
I said, look, I mean, I remember when you went through it, man, and
Oh yeah,
and it's you love those kids, but sometimes they forget about you before you forget about them. And I'm not saying they did, but
yeah.
for us as adults, you pour so much into it and you're up there so much that it's hard to move on to, even if it is beneficial for you and your life and your family.
Oh yeah, yeah. And hey, how about this? We just played in Jamboree, and the Lake Arthur was at the Jamboree we played in, and man, it was so good to see all those kids. Everywhere I go, I get attached to them because as strength coaches, we spend more time with them than collectively than their coaches do, and you see them at their best, you see them at their worst, you see them when they're weak, you see them when they're strong. And you form such strong bonds with them that it's tough to leave them, but I got a great group of new kids, at St. Louis, man, and they're working hard, and we always talk about do it for the Lou, let's build the culture, and it's happening, and it's happening quicker than I thought it would. The kids are taking to it, but it's effort and love at the same time.
Yeah, that's so it's what helps build culture and builds
Hmm.
programs, man, is putting that effort and loving. And the paycheck always isn't the paycheck. The paycheck is the triumphs, the tribulations, the making it to the top. So
It's
look, man,
definitely not the dollar amount.
no, heck no, man, but if we were in it for the money, we probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing, right?
No,
Not many people put their livelihood and their futures and their whole lives in the hands of 14 to 18-year-old kids.
no, no, not at all. No, no. No, they would understand a lot more what we go through. They would.
Right. So, talking a little bit about your background, you've obviously been with a wide range of athletes, from
Mhm.
high school to collegiately to even mixed martial artists, is there any specific moment or conversation or anything like that that was just kind of like that aha moment? Like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. This is where I'm supposed to be. Even if it was times where you got into that private sector because, I know for a little while you got out of coaching, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, yeah, for about 10 months. I was at Sam Houston, and I just and I've heard a lot of coaches say this. I just need to step away for a second. And I went into sales. I was with BSN Sports, selling sports apparel and equipment, and even weight rooms. Of course, I'm a strength coach. I try to attack that end the hardest. But not every high school is ready to make a 50 to $200,000 purchase. Like that weight rooms cost. So Yeah, I did get out for about 10 months, and I guess Joe, my aha moment was I was at a high school that was on my account list, and I was watching the workout in the weight room because the coach was, that I was going to show some uniforms to, was in the weight room training the kids, and he does a great job, but I'm just watching, and I'm having to stop myself from borrowing a whistle and taking over the weight room, you know,
Yeah.
and I want to just jump in and coach, and our conversation moved from a brand new set of Nike jerseys to, hey, what's the what phase of y'all's off season are y'all in? And hey, show it to me on paper, man. I want to talk to you about it. So um, when I left that sale, and actually landed the sale, left that, and I said, man, I got to start looking again. It's this is what I belong in.
And it's crazy. Those moments happen at all different times of our careers because
Mhm.
that's how many years in was that for you? That was almost 15 years into your career. It was like,
Yeah, that was about 2019.
yeah. So it's almost like, all right, this is what I need to be doing. This is where I
Yeah.
need to be. And I just needed a little breather and a little break. And everybody needs those now and then, man. And there's no looking back from there, right?
No,
Now you're
not at
6
all.
more years into it. And it's like, you're almost, I don't want to say it's everything you've ever been looking for, but knowing you, I mean, it's close to everything you've been looking for. I mean, it's
Mhm.
near family, it's right by home, it's you get to see the kids every day, get to see your wife every morning before outside of just kissing you. See you
Yeah.
later. I'm going to
Well,
work.
I get to make them breakfast in the morning, and
Yeah.
that, I mean, just that means the world to me, because before I was, you know, they're either just waking up or, um, I'm already gone by the time they get up, and then when I get home, it's, they're either already asleep or they're laying down in bed reading a story and, come running to me and tell me good night, and, then you go to bed with a tear in your eye, and you're like, "Man, I hope I get to see the kids tomorrow," you
Yeah.
know? But, yeah, man, that light bulb came on, and now, man, we're building a new school with St. Louis, and it's going to be, man, I almost say 90 seconds at the max from my house. I'll be able to either walk, bike, or even take a golf cart, to work here in about the next 16 months. So, and it's
Dude,
going to be a beautiful new facility. They'll let me
that's a
design the weight
blessing.
rooms, and oh yeah, and I'm, of course, I'm already trying to, squeeze every value out of squeeze all the value out of every dollar that we're gonna, put together for the weight room. And I'm already, asking the contractors, can I have the extra dirt for a hill in the back behind the stadium to train? And, you know, um, I'm excited.
Yeah, that's great. So, like you said, you're at St. Louis Catholic now. It's a
Mhm.
3A school, which in the state of Louisiana is dead in the middle, right? You got
Yep.
1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. As far as football playing schools, we have Class B and Class C here, but they don't play football. So you're dead in the middle, and you've learned kind of lessons from being at big schools, being at the collegiate level, being in the private sector. Is there anything, let's say you could go back to those Sulphur Sam Houston years, back to the 5A schools. Is there anything from these smaller level schools and these smaller classification schools that you might have learned that you wish you could take there, or vice versa, something from a big school that you now implement at the smaller schools you've been at?
You know, I think with small schools, it taught me my biggest lessons in programming. Because sometimes, and this doesn't take away from the quality of the school, but sometimes a smaller school has a smaller bank account, and there's not all the resources that you have at those bigger schools. When I was at Sulphur, we had a giant weight room, that connected to the field with every bell and whistle that we wanted at that time. And if we wanted to add it, it was pretty easy, to put together the funds to go get it, to just make that programming just a little bit smoother and a little bit easier. Uh, Sam Houston High School, big weight room upstairs, everything I wanted, and it was easy. Like I said, easy to put the money together, for, to buy all those implements that I want, you know, and I had great administration at both schools, and they let me program how I want, and I had great bosses that didn't question what I did, and um, So, then go to McNeese, and we had, we were at that time, we were Hammer Strength's premier facility in the South region. And we're in a 10,000 square foot room, with 20 racks and chains and band attachments and all the, auxiliary machines we wanted, cardio equipment, nutrition center, and then when I went to Lake Arthur, I had a big room and I had 9 racks, but they were very, very old, so,
A little bit bulkier
and
than your normal rack you see these days.
yeah. Oh, yeah, and we're talking about, like, 25, 26-year-old rack. It's time to buy a new rack after that at that time, and, there were platforms attached to those racks, and, I mean, there was a beautiful piece of machinery when it was brand new, but, I try to take those raised platforms up because I like inlaid platforms. That's just me, and then the whole rack started coming apart at that point. It's like, "Oh, I gotta stop doing this," you know? Didn't have very many dumbbells. Had up to about 50 pounds. They were mixed matched, broken, the kids didn't know how to, you know, live safely in the room, so they'd throw stuff around, and we had many, many, many conversations about that. They didn't understand about collars, and so there was some personal dollars spent there, for smaller purchases and accessories, and um, then we start putting money together, and to put some new machines in. But at that time, you have to really dig into your brain and become creative, to train some of those patterns that you want to train, that for that a football needs at whatever point he's in his off season, or a softball girl, what she needs. I also learned about the durability of athletes, when I was at the 2A level, because a lot of my kids would get off the football field and they would go straight to the basketball court, and then they get off the basketball court and they go straight to the track, and then some of those kids, they would go play basketball and power lift for me. When they were done with that, we'd go straight into track, and then the cycle would repeating on the girls' side. I had dancers, I had cheerleaders that were all softball players and ran track for me, and it's a balancing act, you know, this is probably a whole nother podcast conversation we could have, but you really see that specialization in sports is kind of a non-necessity, and you start learning about how to balance, training programs, and how tough kids can be, and they can handle, whatever, all these different sports, and it does so much good for them to be in all these different sports, competitively competitive wise, and their body becomes more adaptable, and we're at the big school, just baseball players, just
Yep.
basketball players.
Yep.
Some are just football players, some are just track kids, and you ask them to compete in these other sports, and they don't understand the importance of it. So I learned a lot about the durability of athletes, and how to expand my mind writing programs.
Yes,
When
and
I
some
was
some of the best skill work is another skill, right? I
that's
mean, it's
that's
not
right.
just
That's
going
right.
out there and fielding balls and
That's right.
shooting free throws. Some of the best skill work is just having another skill and playing something different, not just playing the same thing year round. And
Yeah.
I've always said, and the people I work with and people I work for, a lot of them were at the smaller school level. And some of the smaller school coaches make the best big school coaches because
Mhm.
you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to learn to improvise. You have to learn to do things on the fly. And, the kid that's playing middle linebacker, center is also might be your gunner on your punt team. It's
That's
just
right.
different things go on. A young lady might go from throwing the javelin to going out to the softball field and playing catcher. It's
Mhm.
just part of what it is at a small school, and that helps you become just such a better coach at the big level.
And that center Mike linebacker also maybe the catcher on the baseball team, and he may throw shot put for you,
Yeah,
you know?
it's just you definitely get the most out of your high school career as a small school athlete
Mhm.
because you can play every little thing and do every little thing.
It also makes you, when you start working with those bigger high school kids, you wanna ask them, like, why don't you want to do more? I mean, this is high school, man. You wanna try to do everything you can. This should be fun for you. I wanted to do everything I could, figured out I wasn't very good as good a baseball player. I was just good at at picking up heavy things and playing football,
Yeah.
but I always wanted to try to get on the golf team or, uh, be in some other, extracurricular activities. So, it's not to be long-winded, but, things that I learned at an MMA gym, and right in group fitness, we were we were doing high rocks before high rocks was a trademark thing.
Yeah.
We were writing hit programs, before it became mainstream. I wish I'd have, like, really saved all those workouts. I'd probably be a millionaire right now,
Well, that brings
but
me to my thing. How have you applied some of that to the high school level? You
well,
obviously you just talked about, hit programs are becoming a new thing. I
yeah,
say new thing, but a trender, trendy thing.
I I think that they have their place, in every, for every sport. When I wanna, like, really hammer on some total body conditioning for not to just keep talking about football, but for football, well, there's nothing wrong with setting up a conditioning circuit that, that has, med ball slams, the sled drives or sled drags, like to tire flips, and set that station for 3.5 minutes. Hey, we're going to get as many rounds through this thing as we can. We're going to take a 90-second shake back, and then we're going to go to that station over there, and we're all going to rotate through this thing in our groups. And over there, you're going to go 5-10-5 shuttle, a set of dips, and then you may be doing jump squats until everybody gets back to you, and you're going to do that. Take a minute off in that station, then here we go again. It's so you can really become creative. With my cheerleaders and dancers, at St. Louis, we do two general strength days right now, one yoga or I call it midweek mobility, and then we do a total body conditioning circuit on their day 4, on the weeks that they're not cheering or dancing. I flip flop it on they do their mobility and yoga on the day of, but they'll do their conditioning circuit, before that midweek mobility. So it all has its place. Basketball, they're about to slip into preseason mode. They've got 8 weeks. They've got 2 months. 8 weeks. So we're going to start getting into preseason conditioning. They're going to start seeing some more of those hit style circuits. After they do some strength, power, and explosion work, we'll start getting into some total body conditioning that's going to make the air conditioning and the hardwood a little bit easier for them. So
Yeah.
I think it all has its place. And look, man, I learned, being at that MMA gym, that your body can handle a whole lot more than your mind wants it to. There's a little voice in there, and I tell the kids this all the time. There's a little voice, that says, "Stop, this hurts." But your body wants to go across that red line, and across the red line is where the results are. Once they start understanding that, and they figure out, hey, I'm okay. I'm walking off this field alive. Almost puked. I didn't. Which I'm not trying to make kids puke ever. I never do. I'm not that strength coach. But they start to appreciate it and understand why we're doing it.
Well, talking about that, people see a lot of our jobs as strength coaches as just, spitting out programs, we're yelling, might be some encouragement in there. Is there an aspect of what we do or what you do specifically day to day, whether it's communication, recovery, a team building thing that, it's critical to the success of your athletes that the public might not see all the time?
Yeah, I'm not a big hellraiser when it comes to being a strength coach. I'm enthusiastic. I tell the kids, I said, look, I'm loud, but y'all got to understand it's me and 50 of y'all. So I got to get my point across. I'm not trying to just yell at you. I gotta say it the way you're going to hear me. you know. But then as soon as we get everything, all of our attention centered, then I go right back to just normal conversation mode. And as I get older as a coach, I've started to adapt more. I'm going to teach and teach and teach and teach and teach instead of just write a program, and expect that they're going to know exactly what to do. Kids now want to know why. They want to know why. So the first thing I tell them when I write a program is why we're doing what we're doing. After we warm up, we have 2 prep stations, and those prep stations are prepping the main mover for the day, prepping part of their core, and doing some joint prehab. And the big thing for me now is assessing, not guessing. I want to, as much as I can, watch every individual athlete, at least 3 times a session, to where I can, watch how they hinge and watch how they lunge and watch how they squat, and watch how they pull. And hey, why are you not locking your elbows out when I'm telling you to on this movement? Why are you not able? Why do you think you're not able to establish that hinge pattern? Um, do you not understand, or do you need me to show you again, or is this something that we need to modify for you? Um, and I think but you take on more of a fatherly role too,
Yeah.
teaching in that manner.
And does some of that, with your powerlifting background, both, you powerlifted in high school,
Mhm.
powerlifting coach, you're part of the state's executive committee. Does some of that mindset, and kind of that, I call it a powerlifting mindset, that mental fortitude, that you can perform under pressure. Does that help you with your other athletes, regardless of the sport?
Yes. Yes, it does.
It's tough to get out there on a platform and perform.
Mhm.
I tell kids all the time, it's tough to get out there in a onesie and perform in front of everyone.
That's right. That's
That's not easy. So some of that's got to carry over to some of these other sports as far as the mindset goes.
Mhm.
Those kids truly want to lift every day. They're not
Mhm.
there to lift 2 to 3 days a week, but their paycheck or their moment is out there on the field or the diamond or the court. Those kids are lifting 365 days, almost a year, for 1 or 2 opportunities.
Yeah.
So that
You know,
mindset, I'm sure, carries over some.
it's great because you don't have to worry about those kids skipping reps ever.
No,
They're
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 almost
they're there to lift.
yeah, they're what's the word I'm looking for here? They self do it all.
Mhm.
They can take care of themselves almost.
Yeah.
It's almost boring to
Yeah.
coach
You
at
can
practice for powerlifting.
those kids, I can give the workout and just press go.
Yeah.
They you don't have to
Self-efficient.
babysit and supervise those kids.
Yeah.
You gotta, of course, we're gonna go over and we're gonna talk about little things with your better lifters and really hammer on the big things with your more intermediate lifters and your kids that need more attention. But like with what I do now in our we've boiled it down to about 38 and a half minutes of actual training time. I can hand them their workout unless there's something new on there. I can trust that those kids are going to do what they're coached to do. You know, and I trust that they're going to do everything I write on that sheet. They trust that even though I have 30 other kids doing, whatever's on the sheet for the day and, not in their sport, that I'm standing as close to them or I am in eye and earshot to where I can correct something if I need to, or call them over to me and say, hey, listen, unlock your knees some more on your RDLs, really sit back on your deadlift or, just whatever the coaching point is, because so they know, hey, coach is watching me, not only hold me accountable, but he still cares about me.
Yeah. And that's got to be a huge thing to help out
Yeah.
with all the other things. So let's talk about, you come into St. Louis, in May, right? You're getting there for the first
Yeah, I
time,
got
summer.
there. Actually, my first day was June 1st, I think it was, or June 3rd. But I mean, once I signed my contract and once school was, approaching the end at Lake Arthur, I was making daily visits to St. Louis and organizing the weight room and cleaning some things up and putting things where I wanted them. But yeah, my first official day we said June 2 was day one. That's what we
Yeah.
kept telling the kids. Yeah.
So what's, when you're coming into a new school like that, when you're starting, whether you consider it a blank slate or whether you consider it a new challenge or whatever it is, what's that blueprint look like? What's that off season? Most people get a football team for 3 days a week, sometimes 4. What's the ideal training cycle look like as far as philosophy, balancing the strength, the speed? Everybody uses the word injury prevention, but really it's injury reduction. There's some things you just can't prevent, right? So
Yeah,
what's
man.
that look like for you?
As far as injury prevention, Joe, you've been doing this, long enough to know that I can't prevent everything.
Right.
You know, we had a kid. I won't use his name, but man, this kid had a great summer. And I mean, he planted his foot wrong and it caught just right, and that kneecap went out of place. You know, Football's a violent
Which
sport,
can be
man.
which can be an injury that's
It's gonna happen.
lingering, it's
Yeah,
but it's lingering. It's, you know, is their quad so strong that it won't stay in all the time?
yeah.
Is, the IT band tight enough that now it's affecting the hamstring? All those things go into play.
And not to steal it from Louis Simmons, but weak things break. You know, and I feel like the more that we can lift, the stronger and more pliable, that we become. Day one, I told the athletes, I said, I want Kevlar coated missiles, that we can just fire and repeat, fire and repeat, fire and repeat, and it's going to take, all that repeated contact that may have injured you before. And it's just going to be a bump and a bruise at this point, and that's the goal. Are we there yet? We never are, I don't think, you know. But day one for me was, walk the kids through the weight room. Hey, this is where we put this is where we hang up the safety collars. This is where the bands go. This is how the weights go on the rack. This clip is for your workout. This clip right here is for your percent charts whenever we have them. This is how we clap our hands to bring ourselves to attention. Coach, why do we clap our hands one time on the whistle? Is to bring the whole group back to one focus so I can speak and so we can all come together as a team. This is how we line up as a group, and, I said, I assess, I don't guess. In that warm up, I can see a lot. I can see a lot about their focus. I can see a lot about how they can move. If they can, if
Just
they
their
can
body
get into
language in general,
just
like
in general, man. If they're focused, if their hands are in their pockets, if their arms are folded,
how
kids
much
don't
sleep
understand
they
that
got.
nowadays. Body language yells, man. Body
Yep.
language, it yells very loudly.
So, and that's an underrated thing that people don't, you know, some people fail to do is just showing their kids the weight room etiquette, the weight room
Yes.
maintenance. That's a very, very, when I do middle school workouts, that's the first day. This is a
Yep.
rack. This is a bench. This is a safety catch. This is a
This is a K
bar.
cup.
Yeah. Like we don't even get into what is a hinge day
No.
one.
Mm-mm.
We get into what is everything day
Yeah.
one. Now, day two, I mean,
Yeah.
we're,
Let's
we're,
go.
we're, we're halfway through a Dvorak complex.
Yeah. I even, the first day, we put our players pantry in, and I walked them through and I said, hey, look, this is ours. This is for you. Um, and, use it, don't abuse it. You can have anything you want in here. It's not a Thanksgiving buffet. But if you want 2 snacks, take 2 snacks. If you want a snack and a yogurt squeeze, take a snack and a yogurt squeeze. Drink all the waters you want. You know, they and if there's something in here that we can get, that's not excessively expensive, then we'll get it for you. Now I am at a private school and we do have a few more resources, so we're able to get those sort of things, and then we, you know, and get them at our leisure, and as soon as it's empty, we go fill it right back up. And the thing is now is knock on wood, we haven't had a kid cramp yet because they're eating and they're hydrating.
Yeah.
That
They're
speaks
getting the
volumes.
proper,
They
nutrients and the proper rest and the
oh,
proper,
no.
the
Coach, when
good.
I was in Magnes, the healthiest our kids ever were in 2-a-days, because they got
They're,
They got breakfast, they got a snack, they got
yep.
lunch, they got a snack, they got dinner, they got a snack. We were forcing them to hydrate themselves. We had no soft tissue injuries during camp,
Yeah.
just because their body is fueled properly, and
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 that's
they're
one of
able
the
to.
uncontrollables, right? You don't know what these kids are doing away from you.
No, God, no, you
As
don't.
much as you try, you just don't know what's going on away from you, how much sleep they're getting, any aspect of their lives outside of being in that building.
Joe, and I tell them now, and like I said, they're going back to that, teaching and talking and, treating them like adults now. There's no reason that you cannot talk to a high school kid like an adult. And I don't mean yelling and cussing at them like some people take that as. I'm talking about just have a grown person conversation, eye to
Oh,
eye. You know, say, hey, look, what's going on, man? Why are you not getting this? How can I help you? Are
yeah, and
you
that's
just
one
not
thing
listening? Or are you just
people are.
or is there some sort of block in there that's preventing you from understanding? Because if that's not the case, then we're going to have a different conversation in a different way, But
Yeah, and that's one thing
um,
people are always curious about is just communication,
that's
like,
right.
and it's a big thing is honesty, right? I mean, I'm sure that's
That's
one of
right.
your strategies and probably your biggest one is we're gonna figure this out, but I'm gonna be honest doing it. I'm gonna
Oh,
be honest.
the kids know exactly what's on my mind. They will never not know. You know.
Yeah, and that's the
Uh,
biggest thing. Kids see through bullshit.
yes, they do.
They see through, when you don't really know what you're doing, you don't really know what's going on. They see through all that, and being honest with them and figuring out a solution and putting intent and putting effort in, they appreciate that because they're going to work that much harder for you and they're going to, you know, have trust in you and understand your message and it's going to get across, especially on our field, in our position, in our profession of being strength coaches. It's vital because like you said, you spend more time with them than anyone does.
Probably their
Whether they're-
parents.
Yeah.
They probably see us more than they see their parents.
Yeah. And it's just, you know, having that open line of communication and having that trust and being honest with them, like letting them know, it's not a rude, it's not a degrading way. It's just, hey man, you're not being the kid you are,
Yeah, that's
or,
right.
or and kind of keeping them in line of why they're there, taking advantage of having a strength coach on campus because, not everybody has that. That's the point behind the Moffitt method is that we help schools that don't have that. But the kids that are blessed enough to have that, you know, not all the time do they take advantage of it or see the benefit behind it. But having that open line of communication and trust is a big, big thing.
That's right. That's right.
So tell me about, we talked a little bit about your programming and day one, is there I guess you call it an unsung hero, like a piece of equipment or an exercise that in your, 23 years of coaching now, that you're like, this is giving me phenomenal results. I'll live and die by it.
Piece of equipment, kettlebells, man. I love them. I really do. Of course, I mean, I'm a barbell nerd, and it's as long as it applies, I like different varieties of barbells and barbell movements, and of course, bands and chains that attach to those barbells. Dumbbells are great, but I think a kettlebell is one of the most versatile pieces of equipment that we can use. It challenges different groups of muscles and different groups of ligaments and tendons to stabilize and be strong. Just by the odd shape of it and the handle that you have to hold and where the center of gravity is in the weight itself. And I can do so much with that piece of equipment. I mean that a nuclear bomb can explode, and I think a kettlebell will survive. And we can carry it. You can clean it, you can squat it, you can RDL it, you can row it, you can lunge with it, you can throw it. I mean, you can do all kind of things with that piece of equipment. But we're in our new weight rooms that we're going to get at St. Louis. I mean, those are going to be, I want a big set of kettlebells, right next to the dumbbells.
Yeah.
And if I have the money and the resources, then I'll put anywhere from 15 to 55-pound kettlebells, maybe even 75-pound kettlebells up at every
Oof,
rack. That'll be expensive,
oof,
but
oof, oof.
you know, so I've been told that I'm gonna have to that we're gonna have to fundraise the whole project, and I said, well, I could just make it as nice as I want to make it, can I? So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna raise the money.
I
Yep.
put I put 5 to 150 pound dumbbells in our new weight room, and
Yeah.
the goal is to get some kids taking 150s for a ride.
Mhm.
So, which is, I mean, you're talking about some serious strength there.
I've seen I've seen one high school kid that could grab 150s and dumbbell bench them. That was impressive.
If the goal is to start with a 150 pound goblet reverse lunge. If I can get a
That's right.
kid to do that, I mean,
Right.
we're going to move on from there, but take
See,
them
I like
150s for a ride.
I like that, and I like me a 150-pound goblet squat,
Yeah. You can do that,
and
man. We're talking about some serious strength right there.
yeah, you know, programming wise, man, I don't know. I can't pinpoint one, you know. I think I think a good old fashioned deadlift and is very versatile after they learn the initial, push off the ground, because then you can then of course you can start teaching the cleaning movements, and of course rows and squats and bench and RDLs. But I mean, Joe, I stick to the basics in the weight room, man.
Yep. The meat
We
and
clean.
potatoes.
Yeah, man. There's nothing fancy to what I do. Cleans, deadlifts, squats, benches, overhead presses, lunges, RDLs, rows, dips, pull-ups. And of course, there's some varieties and some accessories. And I always tell the kids that do y'all ever notice that the workouts change every 3 to 5 weeks? Yes, sir. Why is that? Well, and the first week I'm teaching you, and then the second week that we are we're 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 cementing the movement in, and then week 3 through 5, then we're becoming masters at it, and we're going to start learning some new patterns and some new varieties off of those movements, and usually I try to start, teaching those planes of movement, those planes of motion, and those movement patterns in their prep phases, just so it's their body kind of recognizes it whenever we, add it to the main workout.
Yeah. Um, talking a little bit of hand in hand that, I would have to say one of the biggest underutilized things, I guess you'd say, in the weight room, or unfocused, that I don't see a lot of people kind of honing in on, is that posterior chain work, that
Oh yeah,
those hamstrings, the
and I don't
lower
understand
back.
it.
Me neither. And
I don't
it's such a
understand it.
vital part when you talk about, especially contact athletes, athletes that are explosive and, have those short bursts of speed. One tweaked hamstring can mean 6 weeks of your season.
Oh yeah. Well, look, man. When not to circle back, but day one was watching kids move, and the whole first week was, what do they do when they bench? What do they do when they squat? Can we squat? And our first day squatting, and the kids looked at me like I was crazy, and I've never done this, but I had to do so much teaching when I got there that we didn't squat until, like, I think it was Thursday. And it was after we did just a kind of a light conditioning day. Week one was break in for us, and I said, "All right, look, y'all gonna think I'm crazy. I know what we just ran." I said, I'm gonna give y'all some time, and we're starting in 10 minutes. Go take your cleats off, tennis shoes on, get you a water, uh, go grab your granola bar. Don't bring it in the weight room, but go sit in your locker and eat it. We'll blow my whistle, and I want to watch you squat the barbell. I need 5 minutes out of you. And oof,
Yeah.
we had to start from the bottom, and so we didn't barbell load a squat, for 4 weeks. We didn't backload a squat for 4 weeks. We goblet squatted, and we reverse lunged, and we front squatted, and that front squat. So look, if you can hold it in the catch position, hold it in the catch position. If you can't, cross your arms.
Yeah.
If I need to get some wrist and I went and bought and I went and bought some lifting straps that night and bought 10 sets of them. I said, if you want to kind of hybrid it, we'll hold some wrist straps, and that's how we squatted for the whole month of June, and I remember I had 3 kids, with significant hamstring injuries that were lingering from the fall. And I asked, one of the coaches that was there in the past, and I asked the kids, how much hamstring work have we done? None, coach. Oh boy, we've got a lot of work to do, hence the amount of knee braces that we have on our athletes,
Yeah.
and I've told every sport coach and every parent meeting and the athletes themselves, there's too many knee braces on athletes around this campus. We're going to change that, and it's not the end all be all for that. Well, we'll start with the hamstrings, because that helps a lot in that injury prevention.
Yeah. So is there something exercise wise? And, I know I asked you about what's the king of, exercise for you. And I think this goes hand in hand. Is there exercise that you saw great results off of? And you're like, man, we need to continue that, or an exercise you didn't see great results off of within a cycle or within, doing it once or twice even, that you're like, all right, I can't go back and do that again. Feel like for me, something I did this summer that showed amazing dividends, and it might have just been pure luck, is with our football guys. I thought of it like this. When you're tired late in games, your legs are the first thing to go. So you need to press more, your upper body's doing a lot of the work, especially our trench guys,
Mhm.
So what we would do on our bench days is, you know, I'm a squat, press, pull,
Mm.
guy myself. So after we would squat, I would make them shoulder press before they benched, because that would make them super fatigued. And whether it was dumb luck or not, we ended up having 10 guys that benched 300 at the end of the summer, and it
Mm.
might have just been that dumb luck that, hey, we got lucky with this group of guys, but maybe it was because of the fatigue they did. We'll see next time around.
Joe, I mean, to complement what you just said, that overhead press, I've heard a lot of the old school strength coaches say, you want a big bench here, but you better have a big overhead press, you know. And I mean, I can remember back in college, I mean, I could strict press 225 for a set of six, you know.
Yeah.
I could push dirt 335, you know. I also bench 385,
Yeah.
and I could pin bench 405. That was many shoulder injuries ago, and that was when I was 22 years old. But I think what you did was great, because those it's shoulders and tris, man, especially the triceps, you know, uh, make that big bench. But for me, man, I don't think it's one particular exercise. I just think it's full range of motion lifting and increasing, a little bit, week by week, and it's those that's a non-negotiable for me. We are going to go a little bit heavier as to what's appropriate for you functionally.
Yeah.
Um, man, if I had to pick a lower body exercise, not named squat or RDL or deadlift, I love reverse lunges. I love them.
I've always heard, man, and
Man, I
I,
love them.
even as a young strength coach, I heard you can see a lot of athleticism at a reverse
You
lunge. If the
can.
kid can reverse lunge for you, then they're a pretty good athlete. And you'd be surprised some of the kids that can't do it.
Yeah. I,
Some kids
I
start putting weight on their back, I love a Zercher reverse lunge.
man, I do. I love them, but I have not ventured down that road with my kids yet.
Man, I've got basketball doing them right now.
Here's what I'm about to do though, man. I'm about to go buy a bunch of pool noodles,
Yeah.
and we're gonna start Zerker squatting soon.
Oh,
And I already know what I'm gonna hear. That's why I'm buying the pool noodles.
yeah.
It hurts my elbows. Hurts my biceps. Oh, okay, look, we'll put the pool noodle. Otherwise, let's go grip the bar. Come on.
Yeah. And I
Um,
tell our kids when we do it, because that's our Saturday morning lift for football. We
uh-huh.
kind of keeps it out of their wrist, kind of gets that joint, the weight on their wrist and that joint a little bit relaxed because they're using
Mhm.
their hands throughout a game. It's a freaking fight on Friday nights.
Oh, yeah.
So, we'll Zercher squat. And I tell them, if this is the worst pain we got, then the state championship's going to be easy.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
I've done them, and I
yeah,
mean, like, a heavy Zerker is brutal,
yeah,
especially if you're not used to it, but, man, they are effective. It takes the load off that lumbar spine. You put me on something, I guess about a year ago. I may catch flack for this, but I stopped back squatting in season. I don't do it. We just finished up a cycle of front squat, and I think we're gonna I haven't put pen to paper yet for this next 4-week cycle, but I'm looking between reverse lunges or just go ahead and add in those Zerker squats in there. or a heel elevated goblet squat for tempo, and me personally, right now with my kids, my kids have never been through a full year strength and conditioning program. They've told me this information. So, assess, don't guess, watch the kids, um, they've never lifted this much in season. I get my kids 4 days a week, during the
Oof.
school week, and I get one day on Saturday. So really I have 5 days with my kids, you
Yeah.
know, and as the week progresses, we move more into joint integrity and hip mobility, shoulder mobility. We foam roll. I know some people hate the foam roller. Man, if it makes the kid feel good, put him on the damn foam roller.
Yeah.
You know, but I ain't never seen a cheetah stretch. Okay, well, you know what? When he wakes up from his nap, he stretches his hips and his hamstrings, then he goes chases something to eat. And if it makes the kid feel good, I'm gonna let him stretch, man. I don't care what everybody's Instagram opinion is.
That's like
It's
music, man. Like the music's if you're playing music in your weight room, it's for them.
yeah. I don't.
It ain't about,
I Do you know how many times a day I ask a kid, "Hey, what y'all want to listen to today?"
yeah.
I'm
I let
getting
them
I'm
make the
getting tired of my
playlists.
playlist. What you want to
Yeah.
listen to? Now they know the rule. If you that you can't don't touch the radio unless you can bench 315 or you're an all district player.
Yeah.
You know, but you better ask first. But yeah, like I said, that's what I'm looking at for my next cycle. And then of course I'm doing a variety of pressing movements. For bench and I'm going to go to a close grip incline this next cycle, and I'm going to buy some 2x10s, and we're going to do some laying rows with the hex bars, and I don't rack cleans during the season. I think that their wrists and their elbows and their shoulders are they're taking a pounding, and so we work on the pulls. And I use that as an opportunity. I can still get my triple extension, but and not only I'm taking the stress off those joints, just because I remember cleaning heavy in the season, and I was a weight room nerd. And this hurts today. I do not want to rack this clean today. I'm catching 305 for a set of two. This hurts,
Yeah.
and I was kind of a tough meathead, so I try to put myself in everybody's situation. Plus, I want the opportunity, and I'm not saying that to be soft. I just want the opportunity to work on those pulls. The first pull off the floor, the second pull from the hips, the bend, and then I can couple it with a front squat, and uh, I can get my clean pattern in that way. So their body's ready for it when we really get rolling in January. It's
Right.
uh, to
Yeah.
expand
I'm
on
kind
that.
of
I think that a year-round strength and conditioning program, it's an ever-evolving biology experiment.
absolutely, man. It's,
It's
I hate to, I don't know, break this to you, but I started squatting again in season.
hey,
It's only because the kids begged for it.
yeah,
And it was like, all right, if y'all want to do it, we'll do it. But
and it,
what we do that's different is kind of that, uh, you know, that Olympic mindset where we are in season, we're taking our front squat max percentages and using it for our back squat. And
Mhm.
we're doing it for speed.
Yeah,
And we're actually
Joe,
front squatting and back squatting in the same day. Again, 1,000 ways to cut this,
yeah,
skin this cat, right? I mean, in season is the only time we clean and jerk because it
yeah,
can be a lighter weight and we can be more explosive. That's our pre-game day lift. We clean and jerk and we do one set of actual cleans from the ground.
mhm. And it's just me knowing my kids right now
Yep.
too.
And
You know,
it's, in a year, we could be having a different conversation.
absolutely. And I have squatted heavy in season
Yeah.
before. I mean, I can remember 185-pound kids that I had at Sam Houston, squatting 415 for three, in week 9.
Yeah.
I mean, we were, it was only supposed to be a set of one. He felt great that day. He was a starter, never came off the field, between defense and special teams, and he just felt good that day. So I let him eat. He was hungry. I let him eat. And I said, look, you may be sore tomorrow. Ask him the next day how you feel. Feel great, coach. All right, let's go. We're obviously in shape. You know, Joe, I don't have a percent on any of my kids right now.
Yeah.
It's movements right now. That's all I want.
Right.
And
It's like they're all freshmen all over again.
y- I've got strong kids. I really do, you know. And you've said this before, man. I mean, it's the way you program is, it's kind of an RPE kind of thing. It's a blend of RPE and what and if the kid if he's got the juice, man, let him drink that day, and
Yep.
if the weight's not moving that good, all right, hey, that's enough. That's enough for today. Just back off the weight, back off the reps. Give me 2 for speed where it's supposed to be a set of 4. You know, uh, Especially if it's a kid that works his butt off. And because they all go through stuff, and so he may be working extra.
Yeah.
But we'll have percents, in a year, and I've told the kids that next year's program is going to look completely different than what you're doing now because you're going to know everything that I'm wanting to teach you. And well, when the time comes, then I'm gonna give it to you. But it's not right now.
Right. So we talked a little bit about programming, man. We've talked about, you know, how you're implementing some of that MMA experience you've had into the weight room and big school, small school. I want to hear a little bit about, partly how you got here, but, is there a mentor or mentorship circle that you have that kind of helped you get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, yeah, man. Everywhere I've been, you always get attached to that one coach. When I was in high school, um, I had a couple. Al Rab, rest his soul. It passed away a few years ago, but I can remember remember how calm he was with us, and we respected Coach Rab so much. And I try now as I get older, I try to remember that. How Coach Rab handled, when he told me and my group of friends, true story, you know, do not go to the fair on Thursday. Do not go to the fair. We play Friday. The fair closes on Sunday. Do not go to the fair. Well, we go to the fair as all teenage boys do when you're told not to do something. Well, the KBMT in Beaumont was there, and guess who got caught on camera, at the fair, so and it broadcast that night, so we walk in the field house, me and my 3 other friends, and hey, how was the fair? We go to the fair, really? They pulled it up, you know, never yelled at us, of course he ran us, on that Saturday morning after the game. But it was just always calm, always very mild mannered, very professional. It was Paul Bourgeois, and he coached me, and he's the reason I'm a strength coach. He's the reason I'm a powerlifting coach. He gave me my first job at Sulphur, taught me how to work as a coach. Brought the small school mentality, to a big school. And we had a very large coaching staff. And but he taught us that there's always something to do. There's you don't have a lot of time to sit around and drink coffee in the coach's office. There's always something you can and need to be doing, because the kids can't miss a beat. And he was a mentor. And when I got to McNeese, uh, Matt Viator, who's the head who's now back at McNeese as the head football coach, taught me a lot about organization.
He actually became the winningest head coach last night, right?
He did. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it was 56-9 victory over Louisiana Christian.
Yeah.
It's great to see that. I'm a McNeese football alumni. I was excited to see that. But taught me a lot about professionalism, and just organization. And you need to be you don't need to be 2 steps ahead of the kid. You need to be 2 months ahead of the kids. And I don't think I ever really heard Coach V raise his voice either. So there's, then and there's the older I get, again, the more there's something to that I don't need to raise a bunch of hell to get my point across. But yeah, man, and Luke Corrala, when I interned at UL, man, he taught me a lot about relationships with players, and that's when I started making the turn as a coach and started putting relationships, first. He told us the first day as interns, and he said, you know, you cannot discipline a kid until he knows that you love and care about, care for him.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me that day, and Joe, at that point, I've been coaching 15, 16 years, and Just that I took one thing, from that week, and that was it. And it's stuck with me a lot. And I still keep in touch with Lou. He's doing great things at Rice. They actually just beat UL.
Yep, they
Yesterday.
did. They did. That was a big win for Rice, because UL was pretty good last year.
And they're still good this year, and you've probably seen a lot of Lou's videos on Instagram. I mean, when he was at Georgia Tech, when he was at Buffalo, even when he was at UL, he gives some of the greatest, life lesson and motivational speeches you'll ever hear out of a strength coach. And the kids love him. They love him and respect him, so
Yeah.
much. So you know,
Those are some great.
and Joe, even our circle of friends in powerlifting, like you and Kirk and Wade and even Eddie. Eddie doesn't say 5 words in a conversation, man, but when he speaks, man, it speaks volumes. And then
Absolutely.
you can walk in Church Point's gym and you can see state championship. You can just count state championship banners and it's
And
all
a
Eddie
heck
Berger
of
on
a
the head
football
coach.
coach too, man.
Yeah, he's just a great coach,
Yeah.
and then Kirk taught me how to run meets. I don't know how to run meets if it's not for Kirk Laverne,
Yeah.
and Teresa Laverne, and I'll still get calls, hey, what are you doing? Like, what are you thinking? Why are you flighting your meets this way?
Yeah. It's like a angry father, It's
Just
like,
hey, Kirk,
yeah.
how's it going,
Hey, how you
buddy?
doing?
You know,
How's the
but
principal life?
and yeah, and our me, you, and his text threads cannot be repeated on here, it's
Yeah.
but it's all love, and then Joe, I'm gonna tell you right now, Wade Hooper, I, he taught me how to program that last 3 to 5 week block for state,
Yeah.
last year,
One of the strongest human beings, pound for pound on the face of this
pound for
planet.
pound strongest human beings, and just think about all those names. They all come out of this state.
Yeah. And I mean, when you talk about Wade, I mean, it's freaking Eddie Cohen's training partner for years.
Yeah. Trained at Westside Barbell,
So
and then there's John and Kelly,
yeah.
and every meet I go to, or all of our conversations, there's pull little things from here and there. John was the one that made me start rethinking the Shaco program, and then we implemented it, at St. Louis this summer. Whew, it's rough, but volume makes champions, and
Yep.
Shaco's a big volume program.
My kids
So
are on
there's
it now.
something to it.
Yep. So, is there something, you know me well enough and I knew you well enough, and we don't have to use names here, but, just thinking back on your career, is there a good story you have that captures kind of the spirit of what you do, whether that's a moment of triumph with the kids, yourself, an unexpected challenge, anything funny maybe that just defines you as a strength coach? This is kind of what embodies of me being a strength coach, why I do it, how I got here type of story.
No, nothing honestly funny, man. I'm kind of boring actually, but I I got to tell you, man, when one of my favorite times of the year, being it in just in the weight room, but especially like a powerlifting meet, is when a girl that has never powerlifted before goes to an all girl meet, or just it's usually when I say all girl goes to an all girl meet because that's usually the first meet that we go to was always Kirk and Eddie's all girl meet at Church Point. But when the first time that a female powerlifter squats, benches, and especially deadlifts a weight they never thought that they should ever be able to push, pull, or pick up, and that they get their white lights, they turn around, and like just the biggest smile is on their face, brightest eyes, biggest smile, and that you just locked one in for the next however long she's in high school.
Right.
And it's not that's not being selfish, but that you taught that young woman how strong she actually is, You know, um, when I recruit female powerlifters on campus, to come lift for us on the team, I don't know, coach. I said, what do you not know? Well, I'm kind of scared. What are you scared of? Being strong? Your body is as a female is built to be tough and built to be strong. I promise you can do this. And I also tell them too, like, I don't ask everybody, and I don't know. I just think uh, that's one of my favorite moments of the year. Is when a young athlete, female or male, just it comes on,
Yeah, it clicks
and
for 'em.
and they understand, and then they trust you, because it takes longer with some of them, you
Yep.
know. And I experienced another moment, the other night, man, when we were at the jamboree. Every kid I coached at Lake Arthur came up, hugged me, miss you, and I coach. I'm crying at that point. I'm bawling, crying, and start thinking about it. I mean, it's like 30 kids just came up,
Yeah.
and
How
told me
far
how
the
much.
impact reaches, man. You don't
Yeah, oh
realize it
God, yeah,
until
man. And I mean, and look, some of those kids, whew, took some hard conversations from me, about why are you acting in the manner that you're acting? Why did you skip that? Why did you skip 3 reps on that set? Is there something that, prevents you from doing that? Or are you just, uh, are you just doing this on purpose to be a turd? And it's those kids that, are the hardest shells to crack that, you make the biggest impact on.
Yep. Yep, and
And
that's the
that's,
beauty of our job. That
that
is
is,
the beauty.
that's a beautiful thing for me. It
Yeah.
just is, and when when my kids, go around, when my own kids, my flesh and blood go around my kids at school, and they start bonding with them, man, that means a lot to me.
Yeah, that's you're blessed like I am that you get to kind of bring your kids and be around those kids a lot. And
Yeah.
it means a
Yeah.
lot that they see them as, older brother or older sister, little sister. And that's huge, man.
Even when they teach them all the bad words that they're not supposed to ever say.
Oh man. Hey.
Yeah, I get, Dad, what does such and such mean? Don't ever say that.
Yep.
Don't say that.
Yep.
Who taught you that? Such and such. Ah.
Yep.
And then the next
Shocker.
day, come here.
Yep. Shocker. So look, man, this is, I got a few questions left. These are kind of our fun moment things that, just to kind of get in the mind of our guests. One of them, something we've asked everyone that I think is a great question, but to start off, let's say, you're getting ready for competition, whether it's a meet or getting ready for a game or whatever it may be, and you're going to show a movie to your team. What's the movie that for you is just the pinnacle of motivation and getting after it?
There's a few, man. Of course, Rocky 4 is great.
Rocky. Whew,
But
gotta love Rocky.
Vision Quest is amazing. I don't know if you know Vision Quest. Vision Quest is solid. So
That's a wrap on another episode of the Moffitt Method Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion enlightening and empowering as you continue your journey in sports and strength and conditioning. Before you go, make sure to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where we share more tips, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. Just search for Moffitt Method Podcast and hit that follow button. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platform. That way, you'll never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you could leave us a review or share this podcast with a friend. It really helps us out. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, the key to success is just one more workout away. Until next time, stay strong and stay inspired.